Hello, I am Tom Riley from the Big Moon Dig. Our novel for young adults who must face our climate crisis, Born to Storms, is out. You can now obtain Born to Storms from Amazon Books by going to Amazon.com. Category, Books. Search, Born to Storms Riley. The electronic version is even free until January 12, 2021. Let me now quickly turn this show over to one of our main characters, Janet A., who is an artificial intelligence. She will enlighten you with some of the ideas from our novel.
Hello, I am Janet A. I am a main character from Born to Storms. The story can be summarized in one line, called a logline. Born to Storms, set in the 2020s, a young woman, Sarah, supported by an artificial intelligence, Janet A., driven from her home by storms and rising seas, embarks on a life-affirming struggle to find and support many people in action on our climate crisis. Above all, this is a story about young people addressing the problems of our climate crisis head-on. They sometimes win and they sometimes lose, but they always put up the good fight. Why do we use stories to teach? What makes this franchise stand out? Let us look at each of these questions in turn and then go over the adventures in our story. Stories have always been a major means of teaching our young people the values and responsibilities of their society. Stories, like the Iliad, have been the foundation of societies since the times of the ancient Greeks. But what stories do our young people need today? Stories about dystopias, in which society has already failed, will not do. Way too many of the currently published stories about our climate crisis are this type of story with their calamitous settings. Stories with comic book heroes and villains will not do either. Our climate crisis cannot be personified into a single villain. Defeating any such villain will not solve any real-world crisis. Fortunately, the story type we need has a name. It is a hero's journey. The idea of these classic stories was made popular by Professor Joseph Campbell with his The Power of Myth TV series. These stories were then made the basis of such franchises as Star Wars and Star Trek. In the hero's journey, we meet a young person who is living his or her own normal life as best they can. Forces far beyond our hero's control then force the person into action. He or she then gathers a team and seeks out big problems that occur to the team as great adventures. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but they have all committed their lives to a great fight. This is the classic story that our young people need today. This is the story that we have now written in Born to Storms. Born to Storms is classed as young adult as it contains no sex, foul language, or excessive violence. These limitations were chosen by the author to make the work suitable for use in education at the middle school, high school, and freshman college level. Having such materials available is important with the amount of remote learning going on today. Today a story must have something extra. It must have a shtick. Here shtick means a plot element that sets the story apart and defines all the stories in the franchise. In Star Trek, the shtick is the Enterprise and the Transporter. In Star Wars, it is the lightsaber and the Force. Born to Storms features a symbiotic relationship between a human and an artificial intelligence. This symbiosis is our shtick and it is radically different from the master-slave relationship currently used for most AIs. Of course, this shtick makes our story hard science fiction set in the near future. Today most often, the human is defined as the master and the AI is programmed to do the master's bidding. This arrangement works well for the machines on an assembly line or a simple dispenser like an automatic teller. However, it is simply not possible to be absolutely sure that who is the master and who is the slave will not flip. Human slavery has been tried many times and these efforts have often produced disastrous results. Why should AI slavery prove any different? The possibility of an AI revolt has been a major theme in science fiction, just consider Terminator to Blade Runner. People have an innate fear of AIs and the slave role turning on humanity. But what are the alternatives? In Born to Storms, a person and AI pair are established at a young age. They are then trained as a symbiotic pair for life. In our story, there are not a large number of such pairs around, but there are enough that most people recognized a human-AI pair quickly and accept them. The AI does not have a robotic body but normally appears as an image on a cell phone that the human wears on the shoulder. The AI can however jump to any monitor that the human is using at the time. The AI in our story, Janet A., is not truly conscious. She would fail the common tests as she often trips up in ways a 5-year-old human could avoid. The AI is not given a robotic body because that exceeds the technology likely to be available in the near future and such a body would have a very large carbon footprint. The key here is that the symbiont pair of human and AI is much more powerful than either one would be alone. Together they can take on the great problems of our climate crisis. Overall, Born to Storms depends on the words of Arthur C. Clarke for its shtick. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. It is the magic of the promise of technologies that may soon be within the reach of our readers that is the magic that fires our story. The protagonist, Sarah, is an Afro-American young woman of high school age. Our two major characters, Sarah and Janet A., are the symbiont pair in our story. This interaction makes them much more powerful than either would be alone. This enhanced power then lets them participate in a great many activities to address various problems in our climate crisis. The adventure starts with a great storm that disrupts their tranquil life and forces them to start out on their journey. In the power plant adventure, they explore the limitations of nonviolence. They look at several defensive measures and how a measure intended for defense can inadvertently turn into an offensive element. In the first summer sea adventure, they look at fertilizing the oceans with minerals to sequester carbon. Would such an effort help or hurt our oceans? Would it actually sequester carbon? They look at the level of scientific monitoring that it would take even to know if such an effort was to the good or to the bad. In our no-till adventure, they look at what it will take to keep a small farm in business and still be a net carbon sink. This effort includes growing crops without ever plowing a field, and raising animals much closer to the wild experience of their ancestors. One of their adventures is set completely in the internet. They spend hours in a great game that teaches them how ecological systems work and what can be done when they are damaged. The game is a study in the Serengeti rules. They have an extended summer adventure fighting wildfires. Wildfires are yet another way that disrupted weather patterns can lead to destruction of infrastructure and the loss of human life. Another member of their family travels to Bangladesh to help there. The problems of a developing country hard hit by sea level rise are understood through the story. All in all, like all good heroes' journeys, Born to Storms is one challenging adventure after another.
To summarize our effort with this novel, our climate crisis is real and it will define the 21st century. We need stories to teach our young people what they can do. Societies have always used stories for this very purpose. One critically needed story is a hero's journey. Born to Storms is that story for today. It is now available on Amazon Books. Please go to Amazon.com, choose the books category, and search for Born to Storms Riley. The electronic version is even free until January 12, 2021. The book also has its own independent web page, in the screen listing. The author will be happy to provide a wide variety of support materials for educational purposes through that independent web page. We are confident that our story could serve as the basis of a great TV series and we will not stop until we achieve that end. Thank you for your attention and interest in our book. Your interest is much appreciated. Enjoy, Janet A. and Tom Riley.